So it's been about a year since I graduated from Boston University, and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about what's happened since then, what I've learned, and what I would do differently. If you're new here, hi, my name is Justin. I'm a 23-year-old based in Boston, working in cybersecurity, and this is actually my first video in about 4 years. So if you stuck around this long, you're a real one. Let's just start with what happened this year. So I graduated in May of 2023, exactly 1 year ago from a couple days ago. And after that, I spent about a month and a half just traveling, visiting home for a while back in California, seeing all my high school friends, and really just enjoying my time before I started my first job. Since then, a lot has changed. In July, I started a new job in cybersecurity consulting. And also around that time, I got accepted to business school. Basically, when I was a senior, I applied to these programs called Deferred MBA. And Deferred MBA is basically a program where you can apply to MBA programs as an undergrad student. So that was honestly life-changing. That was a huge moment for me, and I'm really excited to be able to go to Northwestern Kellogg in a few years. Around the end of August, I actually moved in with my girlfriend, Grace. It's been the time of my life. It's been so fun just to live with my best friend. And then fast forward to just about a month ago, I actually switched jobs. I ended up finding a new job, also in cybersecurity, but this time it was at a tech company. So just a few weeks ago, actually, I left my consulting job to become a technical program manager. It's definitely been a lot. It's been a big transition, but I'm really excited about this role, and I'm so excited to see what's next. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was that I started 2 side hustles. The first one was photography. Photography's always been part of my life. I've learned a lot from my dad, who's always been into photography, and I kind of rediscovered my love for it over the past year. Around this time last year, while I was taking my own grad photos, I was also taking grad photos for my friends. And that ended up becoming kind of a second stream of income for a little bit. And then the second side hustle that I did was I started a newsletter. It's called MBA XL. It's about deferred MBA. I felt like when I was applying for the deferred MBA that a lot of people could have benefited from that program if they had known about it. And so I started this newsletter basically as a way of spreading awareness about deferred MBAs, as well as giving tips, tricks, and basically a bunch of different information for deferred MBA applicants. So it's been an absolute blast, and I'm hoping to keep that up. All right, so let's talk about things that I've learned over the past year. You know, it's been a year since college, and I feel like a lot has changed. Number one, first thing I learned this year was it's totally okay to get into a routine. Something that terrified me about my post-grad life as I was graduating college was kind of becoming an NPC. You know that SpongeBob meme where he's like waking up, going to work, coming back, working out, watching TV, going to sleep, waking up again. So I realized that it's not really a bad thing that life slows down. In fact, I realized that during college, I was actually operating at pretty much 150%. You know, I was pursuing extracurriculars and clubs. I was also working 3 part-time jobs. And I also still needed to make time to be with my friends and of course study. So I feel like this has been a really good readjustment period for me to kind of discover where my boundaries are and kind of help me realize what a proper balance between work and life is. And so that was the second thing I learned. Your first full-time job is actually one of the best places to learn how to separate work and life. When my work at my job is done for the day, I'm done. You know, I'm not working 8 hours every day. Sometimes I'm working more than that. But once I shut the computer off, that's me time. And so that kind of looks different every day, my 5 to 9, as you might call it. Sometimes I go make dinner with friends. Sometimes I make dinner with Grace. Sometimes when it's nice out, I'll go for a walk. Sometimes it's a long gym session. Sometimes it's playing video games. And a lot of the times it's actually working on my side hustles. That's basically just me working on my newsletter, thinking of new ideas, creating marketing material. And yes, this is still work, but this doesn't feel as much like my job. It feels like a completely different thing that I'm working on. It's almost like an extracurricular from college, like joining a club. My point is that it's actually really great to just be able to turn off my brain after work. I feel like this helps me be more productive during my actual work hours, so I'm usually done by around 6 p.m. every day. The third thing I learned this year was to fall back in love with my hobbies. During college, I got really busy, but since I was in 4th grade, I've always played the saxophone. And so this was kind of my year to rediscover that. I played for a few years at BU, but this year I actually rejoined the BU concert band as an alumni. So I'm playing the saxophone again. I was doing that twice a week during the semester, and it was just honestly really fun to connect with my old community. As I mentioned before, I've also been rediscovering photography. It's been something that is a really good creative outlet for me. I always love taking my camera whenever we're traveling or going to new places. And honestly, it's so cool to just be able to create my own art. Like this over here is something I took about a month ago. Not my best photo, but definitely great for the spring vibe. And then another thing that I've kind of discovered this year is just watching movies. I really enjoy going to see movies. I also enjoy just sitting on the couch and watching something after work. I don't do it all the time, but it's really been fun to be on Letterboxd also. I don't know if you have Letterboxd, but it's so much fun to be able to see what my friends are watching and stay in touch through that medium. Next thing I learned is that you're probably not gonna be in love with your first job. Now, let me preface this by saying my last job in consulting was great. It was a really supportive environment. I met some great people there and really discovered what I wanted to do in cybersecurity. That being said, whether it's an internship or a class or your first job, the first time you do something, I feel like is almost more about figuring out what you don't like rather than figuring out what you like. Because honestly, there's not a lot of people in this world that can go into their career and know exactly what they want to do. I'm definitely not one of them. You know, when I went to BU and I picked my business major, I picked it because I didn't know what to do. And here I am pursuing a career in business. For a time when I was in college, I was kind of under the impression that my first job was going to be my forever home, or at least for the next 4 or 5 years. That may be the case for some people, but that just wasn't the case for me, and that's okay. I can get into this topic maybe more in detail in a different video, but my point is if you feel stuck somewhere, or if you want to pursue an opportunity somewhere else, go for it. Next thing I learned was how to budget. Budgeting is key. It's crucial. I honestly spent money really stupidly in college. A lot of the times I was kind of using the excuse of, you know, I'm in college, this is only a once in a lifetime thing. I'm gonna go say yes to going out to dinner, going out to get drinks. And I don't regret that at all. I think that was the right decision for me. You know, I made some great memories and I had some great times. But also I wasn't really spending money with intent. Over the past year, I've kind of taken on this method of budgeting in a way that's not necessarily restrictive, but rather just a more mindful way of spending money. But also, again, I'm not saying don't have fun. I'm saying you can have fun, but do it intentionally. There's honestly so many different ways to have fun that don't really involve spending a ton of money. We've really loved having friends over at the apartment, just hanging out, even just going on walks in a new part of town, or taking a day trip over the weekend. Just last month, we went up to Vermont to go see the total eclipse, and that was insane. Money can't buy experiences like that. And last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of what I learned this year was to do things that give me meaning and give me purpose. Does your job give you a sense of purpose? Probably not in the first year or two of being in the industry. And that kind of goes for any industry. You always got to start at the bottom. And so for me, in the first few months of my career, I was always trying to figure out what is the purpose of my work and how can I see my impact? And it's kind of hard to do that in your first job, especially in a big corporate job. And while I really enjoy what I do, work is work, right? Like, I'm not springing out of bed every day to log on to my computer. So for me this year, I've realized I really like to build things. I really enjoy writing and I really enjoy mentoring. And that's kind of what I wanted to incorporate into the side hustles that I was doing. Some people will call me a workaholic. Honestly, maybe I am, but I really enjoy doing the work that gives me a sense of purpose and really energizes me. And that's what I get out of doing things like my newsletter and also making videos like this. Starting these side businesses has really helped me get into the nitty-gritty details of how to start a business and how to run a business and how to grow a business. And that's something that I could probably eventually get in my corporate job, but it's really hard to get that in an entry-level job. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how things are. But most importantly, outside of work, I also want to do things that energize me and that motivate me. So last thing I wanted to talk about is some of the goals I have for the next year. And the first one is that I want to make more friends. So I'm originally from California, but now I've been in Boston for almost 5 years. Boston's the city that I went to school in, and I've honestly gotten a little bit comfortable socially, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Especially with my job being mostly remote, it's been really hard to make friends at work, and I feel like I need to take that next step forward to push myself to meet new people in some other type of context. Next thing I want to do this year is I want to travel more. The first year of my job, I was mostly concerned with saving up enough money and trying to become more financially stable. And honestly, now I've gotten to a point where I feel pretty stable. And that's a huge blessing, and I feel very grateful for that. So now that over the past year, I've gotten a better grip on how to budget and how to manage my money, I really want to start being able to spend more money on experiences. I'd really like to go to Europe this year. Growing up in California, Europe's always been kind of a far shot, so I would love to do that. I'd also really love to visit my family back in Shanghai. So mark my words, this will be the year that I go travel. Hold me to that. And then my last overarching goal for the next year is that I want to try YouTube again. My skills are honestly a little bit rusty, as you can probably tell. Again, it's been 4 years since I made the last video, and I've kind of just had some paralysis. I haven't been able to touch a camera in a few years. But there's also kind of a side motivation to this as well, because I want to get back into video editing and hopefully build some skills to do some social media marketing for my side businesses. This year with my MBA Excel newsletter, I think my goal really is to grow it and find a bigger audience. And I think making videos, doing career content, things like that can really help boost the brand. So frankly, this just seemed like a really good opportunity to get back into this hobby while also building my side business. So on this channel, I'm hoping to do a little bit more career content, kind of treat this as a career diary, as well as maybe do some deep dives into tech and business and whatever I like to write about. Overall, it's been a great year. I've really enjoyed my first year out of college. The first few months were honestly really scary. Just getting into that routine, working a full-time job was not something I was really used to before college. But you know, it's been 12 months and I feel like things are slowly starting to settle down and get a lot more comfortable. Thanks so much for checking in, and I will see you next time.